Well, again, I have an amazing expert that I'm bringing onto the show. And I've known Angela for probably about a year or so now. And, the first time that I saw you, you were all over social media and you haven't let up for a minute. It's amazing. You just get all over the place. Well, let me tell you a little bit about Angela. She is the founder of Boomer and Beyond Wellness and works with seniors, has been for quite some time. And you're based in Florida. Am I correct, Angela?
Yes, in Miami Beach.
Miami Beach, which, that is kind of one of the capitals for retirement. So I would assume there's a lot of people that can use your help. And let's start with, I do want to talk about your business and health and nutrition, but let's start with when you became vegan.
Are you ready to live the life you deserve? Do you want to feel vibrantly healthy and reach your optimal weight without dieting while being kind to animals and the planet? Then you're in the right place at the right time. Get ready to hear from doctors, nutritionists, experts, and everyday men and women committed to creating a powerful life in mind, body, and soul through ethical food choices. Welcome to Plant-Based Eating for Health with your host, certified plant-based nutritionist, Kathleen Gage.
What was your motivation for becoming vegan?
Well, that's interesting because it was preceded by becoming vegetarian first. Now, oftentimes, Kathleen, I'll be forthcoming with you and forthcoming with the audience, that because I have had an insomnia issue since I'm 4 years old, there are times I have to check my notes because I don't remember the exact years. I mean, there are so many vegans who they know their veganiversary. I don't know, but I can tell you that it was either 1986 or 1987 that John Robbins had published Diet for a New America. I'd love to know how many people he swung over to the other side. And so I went from the standard American diet to, well, I should say the standard American Italian diet to vegetarian. And it was in an instant. And I was sharing my life at that time with a cat. Her name was Honey Bunny. And she began a 45-year journey of me with coming from a place of ethical vegan at this point in my life for sure. But it began with her and it began with that book. So it was about 86, 87. And I would say I think it took me 3 to 4 years between 1990 to 1991 to become vegan, but it wasn't straightforward. I had
what was the
setbacks.
Was the line that you crossed when you finally said, "Okay, I am vegan," and you started identifying as vegan? When did you know that?
No, that's the one thing I can't remember. I know that there was a strong influence by a man by the name of Matthew Grace. And Matthew was a raw vegan who reversed MS through his diet. And he was also a personal trainer. So and he was New York City based. So but I think he was a little bit later on. I'm not too sure precisely what it was. I do know though there was, I was married in 89 and I know by 90, 91, I was just all about, just plant foods because I hadn't yet figured out how detrimental dairy was until I had several setbacks because of dairy over the course of, 35 years of doing this. So,
well, when you say setbacks, what specifically do you mean by that?
Okay, so whenever there was kind of a dramatic event in my life, I don't know how else to say, something that, you remember till the day you go, and whenever there was some sort of an emotional upheaval, I returned to cheese. It was cheese. Cheese to me is the ultimate pleasure trap food, no? Right? Salt, oil, sugar, and it was such a draw. And I hadn't yet learned the expression from Chef AJ, if it's in your house, it's in your mouth. Boy, is that ever the truth. But when you live in Manhattan, I lived in Brooklyn. There's 24/7 little groceries, and we're talking 30 something years ago, 24/7. Just walk across the street and get whatever garbage food you want. So whenever there was an upheaval, divorce, I was at one point directly after the divorce, I was diagnosed with manic depression. And that was back in the day when if you remember Patty Duke, so she brought this to surface along with the medication lithium. And that began a cycle of 25 to 28 years of rotating on all kinds of psychotropic and SSRI drugs. So that's why my memory is a little bit like, I wish I can give you the exact moment, but I can't. I just know that moment, though, when I put the book down and I came out of my bedroom and looked at my cat, Honey Bunny, and I went, no way that could I ever eat flesh again.
Right.
You know, that was that impact. Then a little bit later on after the divorce, and I was kind of settled down emotionally for a while, I went to raw vegan. I went to a stretch of 5 years raw vegan. So I was really following this man, Matthew Grace. And then there was an organization in New York City, and we used to do potlucks and meetups and all that. And that was like about 94 or 95 that we were doing that. And then after that stretch, 9/11 had occurred. And I had at the same time kind of a tumultuous relationship with a man that actually was what compelled me to move down here to Miami Beach. I knew I needed to be separated, you know. And my dad died just at that same time period. And I worked in Brooklyn Heights for 11, 12 years before I moved here as a trainer in a wonderful gym there, but it was right across the street from off the promenade. I should say right across the promenade, you can see downtown Manhattan. And I knew over 30 people who passed that day. And we lost most of our membership at the gym, the fire department. Wow. There was a man in my life that I was starting to see, a fireman, and he went down. So it was again, at that time period, I went from this just raw vegan, organic, you know, and just never ate a bit of cooked food. Bam, right back to the pleasure trap food. So in between there, Kathleen, I know your background. And so I put myself in a rehab. I went into, it was a Kundalini yoga-based rehab, and it was located in Arizona. But though it was run by yoga Sikhs, every one of them was either an MD or an RN. And it's there in this rehab that I learned about massage therapy, about yoga therapy, you see. And the food that they gave us was vegetarian, vegan. We didn't do any medications. We did herbal protocols that were personalized. We attended 12-step meetings. I was there with every kind of addict you could possibly think of, you know. So I'm bringing this up because, you know, I'm a big fan of, and I also work with her, Dr. Jen Hawk, and she works with Dr. Doug Lyle with Esteem Dynamics. And she says that there is no recovery without several relapses. And for me, it was 3. It was 3 times. And the last time was, let's see, I went to massage therapy school at 55, and I graduated 2 years later at 57. And just prior to that, for about a 4 or 5 year stretch, my very, very best friend was diagnosed with malignant melanoma that is very, very rare, very rare. And I watched her, Kathleen, go through the process of allopathic medicine. And I promise you that I just looked at this, and I shared in the experience with her from the perspective that I actually at nighttime would stay in the hospice with her or go to the hospital and stay there and all that. And I let myself go in that process. I totally let myself go. That was on the heels of another 5-year stretch of raw vegan. What I'm pointing out to you, though, is because I think I've heard you say this too about being raw vegan didn't quite work for you. It didn't quite work for me because for me, raw vegan meant a lot of fat. Go for those avocados, go for those nuts and seeds because, they're yummy, right? And not good for me.
Right.
And so, that's at these moments in time is when I would go back. Ultimately and finally, it was Chef AJ's program of SOFAS free, which means salt, oil, flour, alcohol, sugar free, which landed for me. It resonated with me. And now I've been doing that, I don't know, 5-6 years. And life's good. I don't have those challenges anymore. It's good.
Yeah. It's amazing when you get rid of a lot of the stuff, whatever the stuff may be. And, one of the things that I've really been digging deep into lately is the whole connection between people's emotions and what they put into their body as far as animal-based products that, the world is so upside down and crazy right now. And a lot of people are not connecting the dots that after they eat certain foods, they get more aggressive, they get more depressed, they get more hostile. And it's like you look at what happens to the animals and you're putting that in your body. And it's interesting because I never really identified as a raw vegan. I've actually toyed with the idea, but I did go through when I first became plant-based. It's interesting because, you really kind of tapped into with me. I don't know when I really said I am vegan. I know it was a general time period. I do know when I went plant-based. And it was after I read the book Eat to Live. I had flare-ups of not really arthritis, but inflammation. And so I thought, okay, I'll give up meat and dairy for about 7 days. And in 7 days, I had just an amazing turnaround. And so I thought I'll do it another 7 days. And then 6 months into it, it was approximately 6 months. I would not identify as vegan. I thought you vegans were crazy. I mean, I will never identify as a vegan until I was at the grocery store. And I literally, as I was walking by the meat department to go to another department, I heard all the scream and the terror and the anguish of the animals. I mean, I really had what I can only identify as a spiritual awakening where it's like, oh my gosh, what have I done? And for years, it's like I was a huge carnivore and I wore leather and it was like leather shoes, leather, anything. And it's funny because I saw that you're from Brooklyn, right?
Oh, yes.
Yeah, my
Most
ex-business
definitely.
partner, really amazing woman. She actually used to work for Arista Records. She was the VP there. She was from Brooklyn. And when I saw that, it's like, oh, my kind of gal. I love it. I love it. So okay. So you went through this period where you had the ups and downs, and what you say about cheese is so true because what it does to our body and what it does to the animals, what it does to the environment. But when did you start really identifying with your business, Boomer and Beyond Wellness? When did you say this is my sweet spot, this is what I do, this is who I work with? How did that all come to be?
It came to be from day one when I entered the profession as a personal trainer. I entered the profession in Brooklyn in 90, and there were very few female trainers. You had aerobic teachers, and back then it was real big, like Reebok sneakers and all that, right? And the leg warmers. And you had women who shot up steroids, who were the personal trainers. They were all, and I know the gym background really
I had a trainer
intimately.
who wanted me to do steroids. I was a bodybuilder in my 30s and we went, and I had just gotten into recovery. So it's like, ooh, that's not going to work for me. And he goes, no, that's not a drug. And it's like, yeah, I think it is. And thank God. Yeah. So
I went through a lot of, I had to hold my own. I had to stand my ground. Because amongst the men, I mean, I remember this one time in Brooklyn, I went to a gym, not the gym that I was working at. I went to another gym and it was a real bodybuilding gym. I wanted to go somewhere nobody didn't know me. I wanted to be left alone with my workout. So I'm on a bench doing a chest press. Okay. This man comes over to hover over me. The guy appeared to me, I don't know if he really was, like 6'5". He looked, it was monstrous. Okay. And he was like, I want the bench. And I'll be GD'd if I have to wait for a woman to get on a bench. And I just looked at him, and I came upright. I sat upright. I said, really? I went right back into my chest press. That's what it was like in 1990 doing this stuff. Okay. So then female trainer, and then I'm a vegan. And I'm telling you to eat my food in my gym just to take a break. My gym was 75,000 square feet. It had squash courts and all of this. I would go find an empty squash court just to sit and eat in peace. So nobody asked me, why grapes? You know what I mean? I just wanted to eat. So it was not easy, but it was immediate with me with seniors because I had such an amazing association with my mother's parents. Oh my goodness. I was blessed with such beautiful grandparents and their siblings. So whenever the family unit got together, we had all of these Italian elders all chatting away in Italian, and then the cousins. And I was always the one who was like, let's see, the cousins or them? These people who are speaking Italian, I'm going there. And I would just be there and watch and listen to them. So I was so attracted to them and adored them. And that's what carried me. That's what began the whole journey of working with seniors. And then when I was at this particular gym in Brooklyn, it's called Eastern Athletic Clubs, and it's in Brooklyn Heights. And I got approached by the manager, and she said to me, we think you'd be great with seniors, and we would like you to start a senior sport program here. And I said to her, you would be right. And what they did is they put me through a certification program with the American Senior Fitness Association. It was a 1-year program. You had to be tested and all of that. And we for 11, 12 years, we ran a program at the gym where I taught the seniors how to lift weights. And what we did is I would teach them how to do cardio so they can warm up on their own. They would come to me, I would take their heart rates. Then we would do a stretch section, and then we would head, in that case, downstairs to the equipment, and I taught them how to use the machines, how to use the dumbbells, and how to spot each other. And what happened is they started coming in on their own, partnering to strength train. So even back then, I was hearing from people who, one woman, her name is Dottie, and she reversed her diabetes. She watched her food and she exercised for the first time in her life. She lost the weight. Boom, there went the diabetes. And there was many a story like that. And it was absolutely beautiful to watch, Kathleen, because, at that point, so many senior women in particular are alone. Right. Their spouses have passed. They were like calling me going, we're having a party. Why don't you come over? I'm like, I can't, I got to work. I mean, it was wonderful. And that's what I've been doing ever since. It has been the core of my work. Sometimes I work with somebody younger, but I work so closely with my clients' medical team.
Right.
So, my first session with somebody is we have to go over your client health history, because that's going to determine whether or not I need access to whomever, it could be the primary care physician. It could be a surgeon. I don't care if it's your physical therapist. I don't care if it's your acupuncturist. I just need guidance, because my whole thing is to do no harm. And there are people, Kathleen, the older I get, the more I see around me of how much acute and chronic illness there is in one person.
It's incredible. It's incredible. Now, what's the average age of the people that you work with?
I work with primarily 55 and above, but the average age is usually late 70s into early 80s.
Nice.
But I have clients in my 90s, and it depends upon their lifestyle, right? And what they've done with themselves. And it's pretty remarkable. I can tell you that I think my commitment got even deeper when I got my own, when I had gotten my own diagnoses. What am I? I'm going to be 65. So I think I was 60, between 60 and 61, that I got a bunch of diagnoses that included osteoporosis. It included subclinical hypothyroid, the really bad vegan blood work, really bad. Like, what would it be? Low protein, low calcium, low D, low B, high homocysteine. It got presented to me, by the way. You have the osteoporosis of a 90-year-old. And then it also got, and then it got presented to me with, because I also got diagnosed with 8 masses in my body, and 2 thyroid nodules, 1 enlarged lymph node. I'm going to bring back that lithium I mentioned. You see, my endocrinologist mentioned to me that she had said, what was the medication you were on? And she said, I said, it was lithium. Now, mind you, Kathleen, I was on it for 2 years, like 92 to 94, something like that. Okay, it's nothing real recent. She said, we now know that lithium creates thyroid nodules, possibly even that lymph node is enlarged because of the thyroid nodules. And I'm like, okay, so let me ask you this. I was on all of these medications for that, as I told you, 25 to 28 years. Almost every mass in my body is endocrine related. Which means endocrine system. All right. So that's your glandular system, your hormones. And so I asked her, is it possible that they contributed to these other masses? These other masses include on my right ovary, I want a small orange sized cyst. On my left ovary, 2 cysts that equal the size of a grapefruit. This is how I was told. And I thought, well, that's good imaging for me. I could, it's pretty clear. On my left ovary, I was also diagnosed with a tumor in my liver. But the tumor, that's the word they write. And that's the word they said to me. And it's kind of, shocking to hear. But then when upon reading the report, I went, wait a minute. So this thing is a hemangioma, which it means that the blood vessels are like in a cluster. They really shouldn't be. So that's the form, right? So I'm like, okay, I would prefer the form be better than that. However, blood work, liver enzymes, all of it is really great. So the function is fine. It just doesn't look great. You know what I mean? Right. So I'm not like really so worried about that thing. The other stuff that was going on too was I had endometrial hyperplasia. And this is basically an enlarged uterine lining, very thickened. And it could be a contributor to uterine cancer. And given the ovary situation with the cyst, I don't know where all this stuff fit. Okay. I weigh between like 118, 123 max. And it's like, where's all of this going? Right. But I have to understand that people say, but you lifted weights. Yeah. But you know what? Every time I relapsed, I didn't take care of myself at all. I didn't do any of it. So you can't go from being a raw vegan to eating vegan and vegetarian junk food crap without having a consequence. You cannot do that. And that was my outcome. And certainly I think about it. I got my period when I was 10 years old. That's 55 years ago. That is very, very rare to hear about back then. But right. And it's because we were heavy junk food eaters in my home. My mother bought all of the fast food crap, and we had more cheese than you can imagine, right?
Right.
So,
Well, it's interesting what you say about cheese, because a lot of people don't connect the dots on that, and how much that can contribute to endometriosis and other conditions like that. And I will tell you, I actually, when I was 21, I was one of the first women that they actually put that diagnosis on. They didn't even have a name for it at that time, because I'm going to be 69 pretty soon. So we're going back quite a few years. And one doctor, at first, I had doctors saying, oh, it's all in your head. And it's like, no, I am in excruciating pain, and my stomach was bloated out. They couldn't identify what it was. They were going to do experimental surgery, open me from neck to waist, and just horrendous stuff. And there was one doctor who had just gone to a conference, and he said, let me do a laparoscopy on you and find out what's going on. And sure enough, I was just filled with cysts. Well, my ex-mother-in-law, Hispanic woman who used a lot of cheese in cooking, she goes, do you think it's the amount of cheese that you're eating? And I'm like, no. Why? What does cheese have to do with that? Well, as it turns out, that there is a direct connection between cheese, and especially now compared to nearly 50 years ago, the amount of processing and chemicals and toxins and all of that. And so when you work with people, I would assume that you probably hear from a lot of people that are 50 and above that, oh, it's too late. This is just the way it is. I'm going to be unhealthy, because I've had people that are younger than me that assume that they're older than me because of their health. And when they find out, in a year and a half, I'm going to be 70 years old, it's like a lot of it has to do with the fact that I do take care of myself. But how do you convince, or how do you raise awareness with people that they pretty much have resigned to the fact that they're going to be unhealthy? This is just the way it is. I like my McDonald's. I like my Taco Bell. What do you do with that?
Well, I have to tell you that typically, if somebody comes to me, if they come to me and start talking about this with me, to approach me for yoga or strength training, whatever, for massage therapy, whatever it is, it's usually because they're leaning already into like trying to find something a little hopeful. What I do share with people is letting them know that my outcome from those diagnoses is perhaps something that could be that could inspire them. So with all of these diagnoses, and they really happened at one time, I knew that when I was diagnosed with osteoporosis, that I needed to up the greens, and when I say greens, I mean green leaves. Okay, big time. I knew needed to up those greens. I'm not telling this somebody who is on blood thinner, by the way. If you're thinking about it, you have to make sure you discuss that with your doctor, because that could be a problem. Now, and I also knew I had to lift weights again, heavier weights. It took me 3 years, Kathleen, but I no longer have osteoporosis. I've downgraded it to what I call age-appropriate osteopenia, because osteoporosis is indeed a pathology, but osteopenia is not. I'm sorry, folks, I'm going to use the word, as we age. I'm going to be 65. I believe I'm entitled to the right to use that word. As we age, our bones get less dense. You start to lose the bone density. It is not abnormal. But I'm not saying to be cocky about it. It's what drives my life. I'm doing my strength training on a regular basis because I'm acutely aware that if I don't do strength training, for me, my love is lifting weights, that I can easily slip back into osteoporosis. However, this wrist was fractured, and I was told that at first they said, well, you won't be a candidate for surgery. Oh, cool. Great. That was after the first CT scan. The second CT scan, they came back to me and said, the bone is not closing. A bone to heal takes 1 full year, but they'll take a cast off once the bone is closed. The bone isn't closing. We might have to revisit surgery. Yes, but they told me, hand surgeon told me, that it's possible that the scaphoid bone, which is a carpal bone in the wrist, that was the bone that was fractured, that could actually shatter from the surgery. So I was like, I'm not taking that chance. He said, well, then be prepared to be in the cast for 6 months. So I'm thinking, this guy doesn't know that I'm not going to use reverse because the medical system doesn't like it, but downgraded osteoporosis. I'm no longer subclinical hypothyroid. Every one of those, the blood work that I had, every one of them is normalized. I also forgot to mention to you that I had 3 high cancer markers in my blood work. None, all normal, everything normal. I no longer have endometrial hyperplasia. It's all from my lifestyle choices.
Right.
And it's every one of them. So if you tell me, you're not going to be able to do it, and I'm looking at the doctor going to myself, this guy has no clue what I'm capable of. No clue. And so I turned around and ate more greens. I don't even know how it's humanly possible, but it is. I even have greens with my fruit, except melon. Okay. And what I created was an exercise program where this part of the arm that didn't have the cast, so it's about 2 inches below my bent elbow, I knew I needed that space in order to get a full flexion of the bicep and get the work done on the upper body. And otherwise, I knew that I could slip back into osteoporosis in this healing process.
Right.
Thank goodness I had gotten a second opinion from a female hand surgeon who happens to be the instructor of my hand surgeon in medical school. She also is a hand surgeon for the basketball and football teams down here. I stink with our team names, so I don't know. Maybe it's the Heat and the Dolphins, I think. And she's their hand surgeon. And when I heard what she had to say and that's her background, she's 75, still doing the work. I said, I'm going with this one. And so she said, you will get osteoporosis. So originally the cast they had was literally just below the bent elbow crease. I couldn't fully flex the elbow, bend the elbow. And she said, we're going to make it shorter, immobilize that thumb, then you can work out. And I'm like, great. And that's exactly what I did. That cast was off in 3 months and 20 days. He said 6 months to expect. And we had on the last CT scan came back and said, osteopenia, no osteoporosis. So I accomplished it. So when I tell people this stuff, because this is the stuff people are going through, Kathleen.
Right.
They are going through this stuff. But the thing is they don't know that, hey, a 10-day water fast with Dr. Frank Sabatino. I came home after that 10-day water fast, and 1 week to the day of returning home from that water fast, I had a transvaginal ultrasound, and they said, well, that right cyst is gone. And I said, let me tell you something. You told me this once before, and they did. I said, don't you tell me stuff unless it's the truth. And they said, we promise. That is officially gone, and there is no more endometrial hyperplasia.
That's incredible.
These are choices that one can make, and a lot of people don't understand that
I want to talk about that with choices, because a lot of people don't know they have choice. And a lot of people, they listen to what the medical profession talks about. And I happen to know Dr. Sabatino, great guy. Frank's
I know you do. I know you
he's
do.
A great guy. And, it's like he's talked about some of the amazing stories of people that have gone through his retreats and his water fasting. And it's frustrating when I see that people resign themselves to the fact, well, this is the way it is. There's nothing I can do. What can you say to people that, they don't believe that anything can change? What are your words of inspiration?
To never give up. There's always hope, especially when it's coming from someone who has gone through the experience of halting, reversing, and preventing major pathologies. It's doable. It's just that the big thing is people don't have patience, Kathleen.
Right.
They don't have patience. I would just say to my doctors, just give me some time. I had Sylvester Cancer Center calling me one time for 2 weeks straight, 5 to 6 times a day, including a Saturday and Sunday, that they wanted to give me a hysterectomy. And I was like, no.
Right. Right.
That kind of thing. No. And I'm just saying that all of this is possible with patience. And a lot of people don't have it. They want to pop the pill. And if it's because they're like, well, I want to get what you got. I want to be able to no longer be osteoporotic. Right. I didn't sit down and pop a pill.
Right,
I worked hard. I work hard at it, but it can be done. And I'm not saying to reject what the medical doctor has to say. I need them. I need them for the diagnosis. And then I go make take another path. Okay. And they're quite aware of that. All right. So I'm not saying that they are the enemy. You do need to listen to them, but you need to just open up to a broader perspective. And so what I do is whenever I send a client material, it could be, I don't know, a link to a website or a book, or tell them here's a video, or some kind of nutritional sheets that we get, and information from all the wonderful, beautiful whole food plant based doctors, right? This is the material I only send out. And my people know it. I'm not saying that they've gone vegan. I'm not saying that, but I am telling you that if it can be presented to somebody in little steps,
right?
You don't hit them hard, because especially with this age group, you don't hit them hard. You have to coddle a little bit. But because my feeling is if I can get them moving, if I approach it from a movement perspective first, and they come at me and say to me, what do you eat after your workout? Well, I just had literally today. Okay. I rebounded, and I did my fitness walk on the beach. I wear a 12.5-pound weighted vest, came home. I'm pretty hungry. I mean, I'm thirsty and hungry. So I just take my greens. I added some mango and banana, and that's what I ate. So it's a matter of just keep the food simple.
Right.
And I'm always talking about plant food. There's never in my conversation with somebody about, well, you can take your chicken and you can roast it. I don't do any of that. And interestingly enough, they get more interested in it. So they're like, I'll have clients literally call me from Publix, which is a supermarket here, a supermarket chain. They'll call me from Publix, and I'm in the beans aisle. And they'll put me on speakerphone, Kathleen, and really loud. And I'm in the beans aisle. What do I get? And then the wife is in the produce department, and they're yelling across, and it is hilarious, but it's as sincere as you can make it. Okay. I mean, some of my clients who have some heart issues, what have you, I'm advising them, why don't you get some arugula? Why don't you get some beet? How about we get a little nitric oxide built up in you? You know what I mean? That kind of thing. And that's the stuff. That's how I do it. I don't do it. Boom. This is my personal experience. This is my personal experience with my clients. And this is how I would encourage you. But I start always with the movement first. To me, it just is a lot easier. You can break away at it. You can chip away at it. And then you can start bringing in that food. And I'm not talking about animals and non-animals and vegan. I'm just talking food, nutritious food. That's how I do it.
I love it. I love it. So I want to remind people that you're listening to the Plant-Based Eating for Health show. This is Kathleen Gage, and I'm talking with Angela Fischetti, who is with Boomer and Beyond Wellness. And Angela, in closing, what are your final thoughts for people who, they are so ready? What would be a book they can read, a documentary they can read, or how can they reach out to you?
Well, they could reach out to me by my contact form on my website, which is boomerandbeyondwellness.com. And I'll repeat it. It is boomerandbeyondwellness.com. And thank you for asking that question, Kathleen. And as far as different documentaries, it depends upon who it is. So I've had some men. I'm gonna advise them to watch The Game Changers?
Yes.
And then, or also, especially because so many have heart issues, talk to them and just say, you might want to watch this documentary, Forks Over Knives. I oftentimes will also recommend Dr. Greger's books, How Not to Diet, and also he has the How Not to Diet cookbook. As far as webinars, podcast interviews, I'll recommend yours. You're very welcome. I will recommend Chef AJ's, but I'll recommend with you, I will also recommend Vegan Visibility, because I want them to see that other side, how this affects business, looking at business from a different perspective. And Chef AJ, also Be Green with Amy, and then, I also send them like emails once every few weeks, some updates what's going on with me. So if I'm appear on a podcast interview, they're getting that from me, just to keep them in the loop of what's happening in another part of my world.
Wonderful.
And and they enjoy that.
Okay. Well, Angela, this has been delightful. I love what you're doing out in the world. It's like I see your post on Facebook a lot. And I think every day you post, and it's great information. It's like, oh, you got to listen to this podcast. Here's an article. Here's something that'll help you to get to where you want to go. Because I love what you're doing, especially for seniors, because, as an older woman myself, I am just so committed to helping other women realize that you don't have to do it the way that you've been taught. You can do it differently. You can live healthy. You can live vibrantly into your 70s, 80s, 90s, and beyond. Right. So with that, I just want to say thank you so much, Angela. This has been delightful. And I want to thank everybody who's been listening and watching. Without you, we couldn't do what we do. And so thank you so much. Have a great day. Be healthy and live vibrantly.
Thank you, Kathleen.
Thank you for your commitment to an ethical life through plant-based food choices. The kind of choices that are kind to your body, the environment, and most of all, animals. Be sure to leave a review and rating of the Plant-Based Eating for Health podcast show.